What's going on, everybody? This is Jeremy from USARK, and I'm really excited today to be sitting down and talking with our good buddy Gary from Constricted and Addicted. Gary, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much, Jeremy. Glad to be here, and thanks for asking me on.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Definitely excited to get the chance to talk to you, man. And we've had the pleasure to meet in person. I think only once actually at a Tinley. So I'm glad to be able to have the chance to sit down with you and chat with you again.
Absolutely. I see you and your everything you do with USARK, and I love your passion. And I was really grateful to get to spend that little time that we did to meet each other at Tinley. And I certainly hope there's more experiences like that in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Same. Same. So listen, man, for people who don't necessarily know about you, what got you started into reptiles?
I think a lot of us have that same deal. As a kid, I grew up in like the suburbs, and we had a wash behind us, and I can remember probably being pre-teenager going out there and catching frogs and lizards and just things like that. I was always I think if I think about it, I've always been the odd guy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you like cats and dogs, I like reptiles. If you like pop music, I like metal. It's always been that way for me. I've always marched to the beat of a different drum, and I think with a lot of us, maybe there's a lot of us that do that, as exploring as children with the outside animals and stuff. But then there's some of us that really develop a passion for it.
Absolutely.
And when I first started keeping reptiles in the 80s, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the connections and the information that's available to us. So as I've gotten older, as I've been exposed to more reptile keepers, responsible reptile keeping, and this passion that I have for animals that I love today, it's a lot different. It's about how do I keep my animals better than yesterday?
Yeah.
You
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And it's really interesting. So I was born in 1992, so I missed a lot of the introduction of reptile keeping as a whole. So it's interesting to get to talk to folks that were keeping in the 80s and even before, because it's like, man, what were you guys doing? There was no UV lights, there was no this, there was no that. So it's really crazy. I think we put modern herpetoculture on such a pedestal right now because we've made so many advancements in herp husbandry and stuff. But it goes without saying that without some of those mistakes and situations that we were in all those decades ago, we wouldn't know where we needed to be now.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that there was people out there that were keeping. They had the information, and they knew how to keep these animals. They were more vested in the husbandry, but it just wasn't available to be shared. I mean, I can tell you this, my very first experience with a large reptile was my sister's house. She had a 14-foot reticulated python.
Oh, wow.
And that reticulated python lived in a very large glass aquarium. And it was just no hide, it was the snake and the aquarium.
Yeah.
And when you walk by it, it would slam the glass.
Hmm.
And scary as it was also intriguing. So,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a ways to go to the internet because it wasn't available and go, how do you properly keep a reticulated python? So it just by trial and error, learning, of course, then the internet becomes available, and you've got just this plethora of information where it's not just how do we keep them properly, it's how can we excel. I have a lot of respect for keepers like Abby and for Jennifer from Mod Exotics, and a lot of these people that really go the extra mile, not just to keep these animals in a more state of where they actually come from, but when you see their enclosures, you can just see the love and the dedication they put into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And it definitely goes without saying when you're keeping large constrictors, messes are happening for sure.
Oh yeah.
From the actual mess that the animal creates using the bathroom to just simply just taking it out of the enclosure, and it's dragging, a quarter of the cage worth of cocoa husk out with it. So,
Absolutely. There's something to be said about that because on the other side of the screen here, I
mhm.
have my monitor enclosures. Now
Hmm.
my monitors are way easier to get out. So they've got like super decorated enclosures. They've got like climbing vines and they've got branches and they've got just if there are cages, look night and day to what these look like, but they're not, they just aren't the same mess to get out.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Exactly. And it also goes to proving like I love the fact that bioactive enclosures have become like a big highlight in keeping reptiles in today's world, but also like it's important to highlight that it doesn't necessarily work for every species, and sometimes it's because the animals simply just don't understand personal space with plants and will easily crush a plant, or they're pulling bedding out as you're trying to maneuver them in the enclosure. And if you're actually going 100% bioactive with isopods and springtails and stuff, sometimes the workload that's entailed with being the cleanup crew for something like a reticulated python is a much more involved effort that still demands some interference on the keeper's part to go in and clean. Otherwise, those cleanup crew animals will be cleaning forever and ever and ever just from one week. So
It's interesting you say that because actually I still do have isopods and springtails in my enclosures from my
really,
bioactive days. They actually survive. They're in there. I've got a cocoa husk, cocoa block core in my substrate.
yeah.
With the humidity, they're multiplying. I
Awesome.
often go in there and clean it. I'll take out, whatever it is, or I'll clean out some substrate and I see the bugs running around. I'm like, holy moly, I mean, you're still here. They're still multiplying.
That's awesome. It
Yeah,
just goes to show you the resilience of nature at its finest. And when you can provide the fundamental parameters that these animals do require, you can still create kind of an ecosystem setup that still works and everything's beneficial.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not by me trying to do it. It's just really
Right.
making sure that the parameters for my animals are where they're supposed to be. I mean, it's very much paying attention to the animal. I've
Yeah.
learned a lot over the years of behaviors and how reticulated pythons react and respond. And when their reactions to their behaviors are usually telling them they're not comfortable. And none of my reticulated pythons are above 84 degrees, and that's thanks to people like Lucas Bagnera and Chris McVicker and those guys that have been doing this for a long, long time. And what they've done has worked. It's tried. It's true. So obviously, right, like the parameters for their hot side is going to be lower, and the parameters for the ambient side is going to be 75 degrees. Reticulated pythons are a cooler species. They don't require all that heat. So I've noticed that when I respond to what they're doing and I lower the temperatures and give them the humidity, I see a happier animal.
100%. I couldn't agree more. Now I've got to ask you, what out of all the snake species and reptile species, you mentioned you've got some monitors behind your setup right now. So what was the draw to some of these larger reptiles like retics and monitors versus some other stuff like ball pythons or carpet pythons or gecko species? What sent you to the big guys?
I jumped off the bridge early, man. Like I said, my older sister used to keep a reticulated python. She had one reticulated python, and that inadvertently was my first reptile. Was a reticulated python. Again, back in the 80s, I was young. I don't even remember what happened to it. To be honest with you, I
Right.
probably gave it away to somebody. But I once I was self-sufficient, I moved out of the house. I started keeping boa constrictors. And I kept boa constrictors for a long time. And I kept boa constrictors probably right up until I want to say 2012-ish or so.
Yeah.
And I took a break. And then my first granddaughter was born. I was actually 20. It was my granddaughter was born in 10 10 10, so it was 2010 when she was born.
Yeah.
So it was right about that time is when I stopped keeping reptiles altogether. And then my granddaughter, I think she was 4 or 5 years old, she came up to me. She goes, Grandpa, I want to learn about the big snakes that my mom grew up with.
Oh man, that's it. The
Fire,
floodgates.
the
Yeah.
fire got lit. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
And I look back at the progression of what happened. It's so classic, right? It was like, okay, we start with the ball pythons. It's a small constrictor, very manageable. Oh, you know what? She likes the ball pythons. Let's get a boa constrictor because you know how ball pythons can be kind of picky. Their water's dripping too much off their food, or it's not the right temperature. They're not going to eat it. Well, a boa constrictor will. So you've got something on the back end to take care of the food that the ball pythons aren't eating, right? Well,
Yeah.
and then it just got, she got a little older and then she wasn't interested in the reptiles anymore. Matter of fact, my granddaughter's been to a couple of NARBCs with me. She went to Arlington, Texas the last year that they had it in Arlington. And she had such a great time, hanging out with all the people that I know out there, like Chris and Dax and Taylor and Lucas. And everybody treated her like gold. I mean, this is a little 10-year-old girl that's walking around NARBC, right? And everybody just treated her like absolute gold. And I loved it. I just loved how family orientated it really was. And maybe that's the version I got. If somebody sees this and goes, what are you talking about? Family orientated. I got the family orientated version of NARBC in Arlington, right? And I really appreciated that. But she got older. She's 15 now, and she's not into reptiles like she used to be. And so that got me. And now I've got the boa constrictor, and I moved right back into reticulated pythons. And, but it's funny because since I've had the retics, and my first retic I got, I've had for over 5 years now. Since I've been keeping retics again, I went backwards. My granddaughter got a hognose, and I knew that if she got that hognose, I was going to be the one taking care of it. So
Right.
we got this cute little hognose. It's about this. I think it's the balance animal, right? You've got 14-foot animals, then you've got this little hognose.
14-inch animals. Yeah, exactly.
My wife is really into the geckos, and I got to say this: my wife loves all animals. She loves reptiles. She did not have. And we've been together for 21 years. We just celebrated 18 years of marriage this last Monday.
Oh, congrats.
When I moved in here, I moved in with 2 boa constrictors. So she had no reptiles whatsoever. Never really even had been exposed to any until she met me, right? So in that time frame, she has a Euromastix now. She has a leopard gecko. She's got 2 bearded dragons. She's got a crested gecko. I got the Leachianus, but I think she probably takes care of it more than I do. I mean, I get it out and it poops on me every once in a while. And then we've got
pretty on par. Yeah.
and we've got we got a couple of African sulcata tortoises that are 18 years old. We've got a redfoot tortoise, and so she also now, and she loves. I just had surgery on Monday, so she just got a retic out of the enclosure for the very first time with my guidance on Monday. And she's a champ, and I'm just really grateful that I have her to share this passion with. But, like I said, I had big snakes first, and I worked my way backwards to geckos. You know what I mean? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5 geckos, and they're all neat animals. Crested geckos, I think everybody should have a crested gecko. Those things are just the neatest. They are the neatest little animal, I swear to God. And my lychee, I love it. It's just, they're so neat. But why do you think I own a Leachianus? A Pine Island Leachianus. Why do you think I own one?
Because it's a big gecko.
That's right. Because it's the biggest gecko. Exactly.
I'm not mad at that at all, man. Go big or go home.
That's what I always say. Go big or go home.
I love it.